So welcome to the August 18th Regenerative video chat. We have some veterans from the RI network on the call today. I think we all know each other, so I'm not sure we need to do introductions. Has everyone here met? I think so. Yeah, on previous chats. So I've been meaning to do this for some time, is convene everyone on a call around COP22. This year is taking place in Marrakesh from the 7th to the 18th of November, a little bit earlier. And yeah, I just wanted to get together to share news on events, campaigns, ways to collaborate, social media, video production, etc. So I'm not sure where you guys wanted to start today or what you were hoping to kind of achieve from the call, but that was my intention behind it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
COP, Morocco, Sub-Saharan Africa, drought, desertification. You know, there's something, there's something to be, you know, to advocate while we're out there. What would be interesting as well is to see what farmers out there are doing for climate resiliency. So I'm thinking, you know, there's some storytelling that should be addressed during that particular COP. Knowing that COP22 is supposed to be the African COP as well, and as we know, you know, Africa needs agroecology, needs regenerative agriculture. So, you know, there's a great deal of work that we could do with our African networks. So, you know, Savory Institute, thinking of other people. So yeah, that's my thoughts for COP. A bunch of other stuff as well, but that's some of the thoughts. Yeah. So Judy, who's here, who's an expert on the issues to do with water scarcity. I'm sure you possibly have some ideas as well as a journalist of what angle, what angles maybe, you know, should be addressed in terms of.
Yeah. So I did talk to my editor at the Food and Environment Reporting Network, and I'm not going to COP22 at this point. It looks like, okay, but he did say that he would welcome an article on the run-up to COP22, so we can start to raise for an American audience or for the audience of the Ag Insider, which has a pretty wide readership, some of these concerns, because I don't think people are going to, in this country, it's not going to get as much coverage, and Africa is always way over there, and, you know, those problems don't bother us and all that. But, you know, I can highlight what may happen with 4 for 1,000 other regenerative efforts and just the focus on Africa. So that's what I'm hoping to do.
Nice. Just a thought about 4 for 1,000. So there's been a call for scientists for the scientific committee. I'll send you guys a link here. RI wants to nominate, I think we're still deciding, but we're thinking, I think Richard Teague, Tim LaSalle, and David Johnson to be on the scientific committee. They're looking for 14 members specifically. And more on that, they're looking to formalize the governance structure of the initiative by September. They don't indicate a specific date. And we've requested to be on one of those committees. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I know that there's going to be a heavy focus on that at the COP itself. So lots of meetings around the initiative. And the other interesting thing that I learned from our partners at Open Team, who are working with on the Regeneration Hub, they weren't able to make the call, but supposedly they're in conversations with, I don't want to get the person's name wrong, the chief cabinet of the Moroccan ambassador for the climate. So this person has advised that kind of the talk going on right now is that the only stakeholder group that will be able to demonstrate that they've made any progress with regards to the Paris Agreement is civil society. So supposedly there's going to be a heavy focus on civil society at COP22, or that's what they're pushing for. And so they're looking at even collaborating with Open Team, or I know they're presenting to the the Moroccan Minister of Environment to have some kind of tool to connect civil society at the COP with policymakers in order to make some concrete recommendations. So it'll be interesting to have them on future calls to share more details with how those meetings go. Yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to, for Kiss the Ground's interest, just share this before the call gets too much deeper. We sent out an email with, looks like several questions that probably have been addressed and are somewhere. But Alex, maybe you could be the source of knowing if this has already been done. We had questions, 7 questions: who's planning on going, programs, actions planned or to being planned, ideas for collaboration, updates for formal COP21 agenda and programming, any important updates around the 4P1000 initiative, any interest in creating a Moroccan version soil story film, and then looking at non-soil partnership opportunities. Can we find the next Earth to Paris campaign that's happening where we're bringing our message to there? So it looks like a lot of this stuff is already addressed on the spreadsheet in terms of events that are being added or combined here. But I guess what would be cool to do possibly is to have an addition to that spreadsheet, pages, if we could, Alex, on this spreadsheet, add pages for who's planning to go. And next, add the possible thing that we're definitely looking into is making some of the calls beforehand for things that aren't necessarily specifically related to the soil movement already. I said the example of Earth to Paris because that was last year a really great way for us to connect and get the story to folks who are not immediately connected to soil and get the story to them. So that's a list I would definitely like to, or Kiss the Ground would like to see, so that we can start to strategize on getting particular messaging if we're not in attendance, to either find who's in attendance to be there representing it, and or getting some kind of installations put in where someone could be a spokesperson for it at events, not necessarily like tabling, but having some kind of inclusion of soil related stuff. I think Earth to Paris is just a good example as an event that happened that we kind of, as a movement, the soil movement kind of just fed ourselves into and successfully got a lot of our messaging wrapped in there. So that type of thing, I think Kiss the Ground's really interested in looking outside of the immediate circle and seeing what type of events we can get messaging, soil climate messaging in.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah,
Finn?
yeah.
Biodiversity for a Livable Climate has been focusing a good deal lately on singing before the usual choir. And we've been working with other non-regenerative organizations and non-climate organizations, because we feel that just about any group can use this message as part of their message. So if you're a faith group or you're a peace group or a labor group, there are all kinds of things about soils and regenerative land management, and this fall we're getting into oceans management as well, that other groups can pick up on. So the question is, how do you help them incorporate this message into theirs? So
Yes.
they would be reluctant to say, oh, Biodiversity for a Livable Climate is doing this and Kiss the Ground is doing that, and we should promote what they do. And I think they're going to be much more open to saying, well, here's why regenerative management is very important for the union movement or the peace movement or the whatever movement. And so that's the challenge we've been taking up, and I think you're touching on it here, and I think it's a really good idea. What we're finding is that groups who aren't part of this whole movement as we now have it really like the message, and they kind of sort of get the idea, and then it gets put into a bucket with all the other good climate things we should do. So we should, you know, solar power and all of that sort of thing, and stop emitting, and it's all on a par with those. And the issue for me is that those have 99% of the conversation about climate, for one thing, and for another thing, they can't work on their own, and without regenerative management, we're toast. And so we have to help them understand that this is not just another climate thing for people to do, but this is, I can say this here, I would say it in many places, but this is really the thing to do. It's the absolute bottom line. And
I've been calling it the ultimate climate change solution, taking BMW's slogan and switching it around.
yeah, well, completely agreed. It is the ultimate solution. And as far as I'm concerned, it has to work no matter what happens with the emission scenario, because we can have no certainty or confidence in what will happen with the emission scenario. I mean, people are still talking about 2030 and 2050, and this is completely nuts.
Yeah, I just want to say I totally agree, and a couple possible differences, but I think what I'm suggesting with these non-soil partnership opportunities is not necessarily having particular industries say, here's your thing. That's a good idea unto itself, but this is more about events that, and I want to totally reiterate what you're saying, that I agree with. We don't want to be added as another climate change typical 1, 2, 3, you know, A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. We don't want to be added as one of those, and we want to somehow differentiate. But I think knowing what type of events our certain allies are at, we could have opportunities where something different is going on, and we recognize that as a movement, we could have whoever is going to COP21 fill a role of showing up at an event where something is being curated or something has been installed or something is happening, where we're getting the message that this is a different type of solution, very much outside of the current box type of thing. So
yeah,
again,
I agree with you completely there. And
yes.
Obviously we have to be agile on our feet and adapt to whatever particular context we're in, and feel our way through that. Because, I mean, this kind of navigating is new to me. I think it's probably new to most of us. We're used to talking to each other by and large, which is perfectly natural for the beginnings of a movement. And now we're entering a new phase. So there's a lot to be learned from each other as we go through these experiences, I think.
I think that would be, so looking at the events list, is there anything that jumps out at you guys? I mean, last year there was so many more events because it was Paris, right? So the impression I'm getting from initial research and talking to people is that there's a little bit less. But, you know, there could be some spaces, as you're saying, Finian, to kind of insert ourselves to do it in a strategic way so that we are all over the place like we were last year and getting this message out everywhere. What we did, or I did apply for a booth. So there could be opportunity to kind of distribute materials there from the movement. And that was my thought.
So, Alex, any of these particularly jumping out as, you know, giving the example of Earth to Paris, any of these particularly jumping out as stuff that we should target, and maybe we can highlight them in a certain color of like, let's target them?
I thought maybe the Social and Global Ethics Forum. I haven't done a ton of research on that yet. Maybe I'll highlight it in yellow. And then maybe the Conference on Youth. Like, I don't know what it takes to get into that because it is a UN event. Again, I haven't done my research as thoroughly as last year yet.
but probably through Earth Guardians, who are totally now psyched about the soil stuff. They probably have, you know, we can make a, what's our do we have a line for who's our in? Like,
Yeah,
you know.
I'm gonna put who is our in. Okay, there we go.
Huh?
Notes. Wait, notes.
No, this isn't like
Column
versus
left.
events like it.
Who is our in? Okay, there we go. I added one.
Yeah, great, cool. So that, for example, the youth conference is Earth Guard. Yeah, perfect. So we could check with them about, you know, do we want to give them, hey guys, what can we do to have your core messaging be this, and can we get a deeper, you know, someone who knows the issue more to be there, or someone from Earth Guardians becoming kind of the I know this is just how my mind goes, but someone from Earth Guardians kind of being assigned, or portion of Earth Guardians being like, hey guys, do you want to take this on more, and we can brief you and get you super learn the learning curve of soil stuff, so you can be able to be spokespeople about it.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, that's the kind of thing that is very valuable if you can reach people and who are already moving in that direction, and just supply them with all kinds of information.
Mm-hmm.
I notice also that on the spreadsheet there's some climate justice stuff, and we run into social justice people all the time, and food justice and sovereignty. And to me, I mean, my little tagline on that is, there is no climate justice when there's scarcity. When there's food scarcity, there's no food justice, because people are going to fight over food. It's built in. That's the way we are. So here we have a fundamental solution in that we are regenerating agriculture and food production, and we know how to do it constructively and increase the productivity by many multiples through holistic plant grazing and through permaculture and through all the other things that we do. And the justice people often don't think that way. And so this is another opportunity. I noticed there are a couple of RI events on that spreadsheet with justice, and maybe people aren't thinking that, and that's something else that we could bring.
I think what I'm hearing is that maybe what we could do together is kind of identify the messaging for, or the, you know, the benefits of regeneration to all these different kind of stakeholder groups, or even within civil society, cater it all to all of the different types of NGOs. How does this affect your work? Identify who are the biggest ones going to the COP, who's going to have a big presence, who we can reach out to prior to the COP, and like train them.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's what it sounds like you guys are saying in some way.
Yeah, and you know, that's gonna, to the extent we can do that, that's going to require some funding and a lot of work on crafting the various messages, because it's not going to be the same thing for, you know, every group.
I have a question. In some of our, and then you guys would know more than I, but in some of our presentations, we use the quote by Stephen Chu about, if we reduced emissions to zero, it would take 300 to 1,000 years to reverse climate change. And I'm feeling an urgency that I don't think people realize. And I also, you know, my colleague Larry Copold at the Carbon Underground, we talk about it often, but that he's been in meetings at high-level environmental organizations or with senior government officials where they'll state, we have 5 to 7 years before it's no point of no return. That it's maybe public or not public, I don't know. The point I'm trying to make is, I feel like, number one, this conversation about emissions, even at COP21, is like, it's almost like the elephant in the room that no one's talking about. And so to your point, Adam, about regenerative being one of the only possible solutions in the time we're talking, we don't have till 2030.
No, you're absolutely right. And I've been a climate activist for 16 years.
It's like, why aren't we addressing the issue of time frame?
I've been a climate activist for 16 years, and we've had these 5 and 10 year windows by which we have to do something, and they open and they close, and then they open again because we are not dealing with what you rightly call the urgency.
Right.
Bill McKibben's recent article in the New Republic referred to that in a big way, as did the Climate Mobilization, which is a fairly new group that is pushing the urgency, and we have been working with them. And as a result of that, they have started to bring biology into the equation, which they hadn't been doing before. And so, you know, McKibben's article is really a disaster in a lot of ways, because he's all emissions, and he's got the urgency right, and he's got the ticket wrong. And so you can get all the urgency you want in the world and do the wrong things urgently, and we'll still be stuck. So
Yeah.
somehow,
Adam, can I tell
yeah.
you? Okay, just about this article. So what McKibben's point is, and this has been shared all over, is that it's time to declare war on
Yeah.
climate change, and it's all this war language. So what
Yeah.
I'm doing, and I'm just kind of fine tuning it right now, is I've written a piece on how I agree with the urgency, but let's not talk about war. Rather, it's time to wage peace with nature. And
This is great.
so, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. My publicist is away, but maybe I'll try the New York Times. I don't know if they would take anything that criticizes Bill McKibben, but maybe I'll share it with a couple of you so you can give me suggestions on.
Yeah, I'm actually writing a very similar thing right now, so I don't want to collide with you, and you obviously have much better access. I mean, I was just going to put it up as a blog post on our website. But the same thing came up with the climate mobilization, which had this event on July 10th that they tried to raise the urgency. It was small, but it was very well put. And people raised many objections to the war metaphor. And actually, one of the people involved in the DC demonstration wrote a great little piece on why the war metaphor was really a mistake. And I think I can probably forward that around.
I would say we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to move us forward. Yeah.
That's what we know.
So,
we're used to that.
Randy, do you think it would be possible to get a quote from any of these high-level officials with that statement? We have 5 to 7 years left. Like, why is nobody talking in this time?
Well, I can find out where it came from. I kind of thought, I don't remember. There's one from Stephen Chu is the thing about emissions in 300 years. That's public.
Yeah.
And
Well, we have a quote that's similar to that. It comes straight out of the IPCC AR5 2013 report, and I can send that to you.
Yeah, can you please maybe send that in the chat here if it's easy to find?
But Alex, the thing that's significant about 5 to 7 years is that 1 year ago, apparently, again, I don't have my citation, so I can't speak definitively, and I'd like to do the research, is 1 year ago, we were saying it was 11 to 13 years, 1 year ago. And then when either Larry or Tom or someone was in a meeting with high-level scientists, they said it's now 5 to 7, which means that next year could be 3 months. I mean, it's pretty scary.
Well, Randy, it's been all over the map for 16 years, the 16 years that I've been doing it. And my experience is I'll go to a talk with a leading climate scientist, and they'll say, we got 15 years or a 20-year window or a 10-year window. And I go talk to them afterwards, and they're freaking out. They say, oh, we don't really have any time at all. I said, well, why didn't you say so? I said, well, we can't say that in public.
That's
We
what,
get crucified.
That's what they say.
I don't understand. If we don't say it in public, where do we say it? I mean, when do we know? Is it after we've had the,
I've got a funny story for that if you want to take a brief Stockholm interlude. I went to a conference at the Stockholm Environment Institute here in the Boston area. And the conference was called Taking Climate Change Seriously, which must mean that they didn't think anybody, I don't know what that meant. But there was a presenter who was a climate scientist, very smart woman, did a great job. And she showed this cartoon at the beginning. And she said, I'm going to say things I wouldn't say to the public. And the cartoon is, there are two movie theaters right next to each other. It's a New Yorker type thing. And one says an inconvenient truth on it, on the marquee, and the other says a convenient lie. And everybody is lined up in front of the convenient lie movie theater. The irony is that she did the same thing with the group that was there to take climate change seriously. So it's a really difficult thing for people to tell the truth about this, especially for climate scientists, and politicians. It's just the heads are in the sand.
Yeah.
The good thing about regenerative agriculture is you don't even have to talk about climate.
Yeah.
You talk about, you've got this dead parched parcel of land and you've got this beautiful green biodiverse area, and where would you rather live?
Yeah. So
how
how
to go from here to there, and we don't have to tell them that they're going to be working on climate.
But so how can we kind of translate this conversation into action? Because we all kind of understand the benefits of regenerative ag, but how can we move forward towards COP22 together to kind of
Alex, are we still on the COP22 conversation as it relates to action, or can we open it up a little bit more?
Or, sorry?
Can you open it up a little bit more? I'm looking for information that maybe some of you have that you can help me with.
Sure.
So we're trying to, at the Carbon Underground, we're trying to go to major food producers to help stimulate the supply chain, because if they have requests, if they really amplify their commitment to regenerative ranching or grazing, that can help move the needle. My question to all of you is, I'm looking for models, financial models, business models of things that exist now where you're partnering, regenerative people with buyers of,
brands that are needing to buy products from people
Right.
who are creating regenerative
and
products.
we're partnering also impact investors. So our model is something like, we're working with large scale food producers who want the supply chain that does not exist right now.
Yeah.
We're trying to partner with people who are producing the small stakeholder farms, and then we're moving over to how are we funding it. We have all three pieces in place, but what I'm looking for is, if any of you know of any kind of industry models of exchanges or consortiums or anything where one feeds the other to feed the other. We're trying to kind of leverage this and get the speed by getting the scale at the level of business. So, I'm looking at different exchange models, the Sustainable Food Lab, things like that. Anything that you have found in your research that could help us develop a specific model that would work, because it's a simple formula, but a complex model, because there's logistics and legal and financial and all sorts of things, and we're trying to put the pieces together. So I'm looking for research info.
All I know is that the Savory Institute's conference this year focuses on the supply chain. So
I have them in my doc already. In fact, I'm looking at it right now. Okay.
So it's really where a lot of everyone's attention is moving this year. Kiss the Ground is involved with Dr. Bronner's and several other companies developing a large-scale brand operation to go during the release of our documentary next year, which will be giving the stories behind regenerative farmers. I can talk to you offline about that if you want to get more information about it. Another big access point for large-scale implementation of this is the work that Rick Ridgway from Patagonia has done around not necessarily regenerative, but the work he's done with Patagonia and places like Walmart for how the actual business model works for changing, for getting sustainable apparel. So they're moving to regenerative right now. We've been working with them on sourcing regenerative from farmers, and it is a complex matter. Right. And also, I really want to push everyone to start to look at how the Regeneration Hub can serve these purposes. I think what Alex and Cindy are doing is amazingly important for all of our work to be able to have a place where this stuff can start to happen without as much hand holding as has been the current model, which has been like very ad hoc, random, helping people where you can, being like, oh, you should talk to this farmer here. But over the next year, developing a system where farmers, suppliers, producers, businesses, brands can access each other through an online platform that is allowing these relationships to meld together without, again, this hand-holding thing that I myself has been involved in already, often connecting farmers that are NRCS affiliated with people who are more on the cutting edge regenerative movement brands and stuff like that. But that starts to get tedious and old, and I really want to look at all of us helping to develop this, and I think the Regeneration Hub is a perfect place to do that. So I would encourage Carbon Underground. I know Kiss the Ground is really trying to help advise that and make that model really successful. But if we can team up our efforts, because we're working on this big brand stuff for next summer, which will be end caps for grocery stores and everything, where a certain amount of companies that are already sourcing regeneratively will be able to start to tell their stories. It's not going to be a certification, but it's going to be a place where the story of what is possible for consumers getting products. So I think it's a conversation we're all having right now, and it's good to know that you guys are as well. But I think my intuition is telling me that the Regeneration Hub should be a place where we're building the architecture for this to be successful and less hand-holding individual work over and over again.
But we're also partnering, not partnering, but we were just named like the nonprofit for the National Grocers Co-op Association, and they want to do a very big push towards regenerative as the distinguishing factor, the way they took on organics many years ago. So they are really going to push regenerative at the co-ops around the country, and all of their brands and charities are looking to lay in a consumer movement from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're working at the ground up and the top down.
Brilliant. Love it.
So that might be a good way. And we're also working with Patagonia, Finn, just on, I mean, you know, they are our primary sponsor in this model.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been working with them since the beginning. But it would be great to even pull the movie through to the co-op and get kind of a consumer support and awareness for the movie.
Yeah, Dr. Bronner's is already in with those guys pretty deeply for this stuff too. So they're the thing. I don't mean to push, but I have to report back to Kiss the Ground about COP21 stuff. Okay. So I would love, if everyone's okay, to jump back to COP21 things, if that's okay, or if everyone wants to go more on this side of things, I'm totally down with that too. But I just was.
You mean COP21 or COP22?
COP22.
Sorry, COP22.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just clarifying.
Sure.
It's fine. It's fine with me, Finn. I just wanted to say to Randy that if you know Ridge Shin.
I don't.
He's been working on the supply. He's a holistic grazier in central Massachusetts, and he's been working on the supply chain issues for close to a decade now, and has been through the mill with what retailers want and what wholesalers want, and he's setting up a supply chain for the Northeast, so that rather than ranchers around this area shipping all their animals to the Midwest, which then get shipped back as meat, there's now an abattoir in Vermont, which is reasonably located, and he's working on several thousand acres of grazing land in New York State and pulling all these pieces together. So if you want to talk to somebody about supply chain, he's a good one to talk to. And we can do this offline.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then Randy, if you want to touch base we could touch base about the hub. I've talked to Larry about it quite a bit and would love to connect with you guys again about that. But back to kind of COP related things, unless others wanted to also address the food supply chain. Well, what else was on that list of 7 things you'd listed, Finian?
I added pretty much the ones that are most important because they're kind of repetitive at this point. But who's going soil partnership opportunities, which we're kind of identifying in the event. But I don't know if we need to make a separate list, and then ideas for collaboration between the movement. So for example, one of the things that Kiss the Ground is possibly going to do is make a Moroccan version of the soil story. But this tab I just started here, ideas for collaboration, would be things that people in the group who are associated with this group are planning to do and want assistance on, and or want communications branding brainstorms on. So if someone's like, oh, we have an opportunity to be here, do these calls, can we allocate a certain amount of these calls before COP20 to be helping each other actually use this time to brainstorm most effective things? Because as we go forward in this movement, I think it's extremely important to have our communications as good as they can be everywhere. So, you know, the work that all of us have done individually to allow for those talking points and best phrases to be used, pulled out, and plugged in for someone if they're going to be doing an event. So this event's at COP21 Ideas for Collaboration tab. I'd like to encourage people to input ideas that they're already working with, and then we can start to look at how to make those the most effective for current things. So
Cool, that sounds great. I know we're definitely on board with that. Oliver, I know you have been working with a new organization called Worldview, and you are planning a number of events as well. And I think it'd be cool for you to weigh in. You've been following 441,000 as well.
Yeah, sure. So we've been working with the Moroccan government to organize 3 events during COP22. And so 2 of them are, well, we've sent off 2 proposals to the UNFCCC with the Moroccan government to organize, with the Moroccan government and a Colombian group called Grupo Terona. And the year 2017 happens to be the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development. And so this is what we're doing. We're promoting agro-eco-tourism. So agri-tourism with an agro twist to it. So the plan is to develop finance strategies for small cooperatives of farmers in developing countries, where they can have additional revenue thanks to tourism. And so so one of the events we have applied for is in the blue zone, and it would be called Strategies to Finance Climate Mitigation with Sustainable Tourism. And here it really is about promoting agro-ecotourism and how funds, revenue stream generated from tourism can help fight land degradation. Because what we're doing at Worldview Impacts, so I'm working with Dr. Bremley Lingdor. He's been working on a farm in Northeast India since 2009, and he's leased for 99 years 300 hectares of degraded land, so land that's been deforested, and he's regenerated 25 of those hectares with an agroforestry system. He has 200,000 pineapples, 20,000 rubber trees that are at the right distance, so it doesn't damage the soil too much. Ginger, citruses, and so we're looking at solutions to expand the project over the entire 300 hectares and possibly beyond that. And so we're working here in London on a business plan where we can possibly attract institutional investors to do that, and to then build a model that could feed into an industrial supply chain, so very large scale. And so actually, to come back to what you were saying, Randy, how can we supply the market? I think it just boils down to money. You just have to you just have to come up with a solution that that's competitive with Monsanto. That's the solution, you know, to do that, to attract investors and to attract to create business. So it's difficult, you know, but I think everybody's at a pioneering stage. So to come back to COP22, so we have that, and the Moroccan government really liked our ideas, and they said, well, listen, we have a 2-day UNEP symposium, and we like you to
add that to the events list, Oliver.
Sorry?
Will you add that to the spreadsheet, please?
Oh yeah, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
They have yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it's too much work at the moment. But yeah, they said, well, we really love your ideas. Why don't you partner with us to organize a panel? And so we're talking with the General Secretary of the Ministry of Tourism of Morocco. We make really good friends with her, so that's really cool. And so she said, you know, why don't you come and do something about sustainable tourism for development on our event? And so I said, okay, yeah, cool. So yeah, it's a 2-day UNEP symposium organized with the French government, the Ministry of Ecology. And so I came up with this idea where we organize a panel discussion for Africa, for Saharan and Sub-Saharan Africa, and how sustainable tourism can attract profits for smallhold farmers in arid and semi-arid environments. And so the idea is to have a cross-sector panel and get them talking, and then have a breakout session where ideas can be drafted, and where projects can develop, can take birth from that panel session, the breakout session, and so the third event would be a high level event for government ministers to attend, to understand the outputs of what we've gone down at the symposium. So, well, right now, I mean, the Moroccan government on holiday, so we should be in touch with them next week to actually draw up a plan, because these government people, they're slow, and they're sort of very busy people. But yeah, no, we have high hopes on that. So really, we've been looking at sustainable tourism in rural areas, and how they can support farmers, and how it can be a catalyst to reverse land degradation and then climate change, and there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot can be done, and so so I think in September the UNFCCC will confirm. I'm hoping we'll get it. I mean, we have the Moroccan government with us, and we have Grupo Terona that are accredited UNFCCC. So I think there's a good. So hopefully, they'll say, yeah, come and do the event. Hopefully. So
I think what you're talking about is excellent, and something that needs to be done with respect to getting large businesses involved.
Yeah.
And I think the comment also applies to the concept of a data and connectivity hub. I mean, all of those things are really important, but there's a caveat to me, and that is that we are small group animals, and we don't do well scaled up. And in particular, because we've put ourselves into this dead end, this climate dead end, I think it's important at the same time that we're trying to implement these things, because we need to do them. It's important to realize that we need some major backup planning as well, because, you know, if, as Randy said, we've got 5 to 7 years or 10 to 15 years or 2 to 3 years, and I've said before, we have 2 years. 2 years to fix climate is kind of what I've been promoting here, sort of, but who has time to think about that? There's so much else to do. And so this infrastructure that you're depending upon for these things to happen is extraordinarily fragile. We don't appreciate it because it just seems to merrily go on its way. But it doesn't take much to knock the whole thing over. Anybody who's ever experienced a computer crash, that probably hasn't happened to anybody here, but other people who deserve it, computer crashes, and that's the whole technological picture. That applies to airplanes and cloud servers and everything. It doesn't take much. It takes a failure of electricity, of generation, of too many cloudy days, of hurricanes which knock over wind towers, of whatever it is. Any of this stuff could disappear in a moment. And the only backup that I see that works is local. And I think going local isn't just a really good idea and cool phrase. It's absolutely essential, because at some point, all you're going to have access to is what's local. And if you're in a big city, you're in a lot of trouble, and I'm in a big city. So while all of that planning is happening, I think the parallel question that we need to ask is, suppose the global infrastructure, and maybe even the national, even the regional infrastructures go away, which they often do in these storms. What have we got left? What can we supply ourselves? How can we help each other? And how can we address climate locally?
Anyway, I don't know if we want to get off the track, but I don't know if we've had any interaction with the transition movement or how active that is, because that's where they've been focused.
Right.
But that's something to explore.
Yeah, it is something that, you know, I think some of us have been in touch with for a long time.
What is the transition movement? Or-
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
You want to talk local and you want to talk impact, you know, you have to reach out to the developing world. You know, I mean, we're here in the West, we understand things, we're educated, but you go out in the developing world, it's different. It's totally different, you know. And the reason why we want to bring in wealth to, you know, we're talking about what we're talking about, which is to support cooperatives of smallhold organic farmers in the developing world. It really is to boost local economies.
Yeah, it's great.
And that really is key. And you're so right. You're so right in saying that. And I think what really, you know, the developing world is huge, and the problems out there are huge. I mean, you take Sudan, it's out of control out there. There's nothing you can do about that country. It is a rogue state. You know, you think Syria's bad, that's bad as well. But this is, you know, and it's a huge, there's a lot of land there, and you can't do anything anymore. And we can't afford to lose countries, because this is what it's going to be about, is that some countries are going to make it and some countries aren't going to make it. And the strategy here is to see which ones are on the bridge of collapsing, and what can be brought in locally, you know, and fast, you know, and how, with what means, you know, really have a look at that. And I think the UN, their decision to make 2017 the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development is really taking that into account, you know, and they're really they're involving they're involving the public, on this.
I would just point out, Oliver, that failed states are not failed forever. They may be as their states. Civilizations have always collapsed. All civilizations collapse because they exceed carrying capacity. But that doesn't mean people disappear. And relationships change, and governing units change. And typically, when a nation state collapses, the governing units go back to local. They revert to their simpler state. So you may be absolutely right. There's nothing we can do in Sudan today, but there will be things going on not that far away. Well, Africa's a big place, but there will be things going on that will, whenever something collapses, there's always something else that's pushing up and trying to create. So you go to where those opportunities are, but keep in mind that Sudan is not a write-off. It could be a lush green paradise in 25 years. Potentially. I'm not saying it will be, but we've got a very Western view of what. Let me put it this way. Indigenous cultures have been around for a couple of 100,000 years. And there's all kinds of things that they have to offer that we discount. And I'm not saying that chaos and destruction is one of them, but it doesn't have to be our way. I mean, the whole thing about globalization is we are essentially presenting one way of living in the world.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, Adam. It could be an opportunity at the COP to highlight indigenous forms of land management who have been producing food for centuries and who are also sequestering carbon. And there are several societies that we could highlight who are still flourishing today. But just trying to be mindful of the time because it is almost too central. I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Sure.
In terms of next steps, I think it would be great if we could continue to collectively identify events. So if you hear of one, if you don't feel like opening a spreadsheet, you can just email me and I'll put it in. Or maybe I'll start a Google Calendar. I don't know what people prefer. And then also identifying key organizations or individuals like we spoke about previously on the call that we could possibly network with prior to the COP who are attending the COP, possibly hosting events that we could kind of insert this idea that this is, such a critical, the only climate solution, or the other 50% of it. And then how frequently would people be interested in being on COP22 specific calls is my next kind of closing question, I guess. Like monthly, every other month, maybe monthly. Seeing shrugs. Well, yeah, so that's kind of just my brief recap, but thank you all for joining today. I don't know if anyone has any final last minute announcements in our last moment.
I want to just thank you again, Alex, for an amazing job of just keeping the continuity going of the group as they grow and contract and expand and contract. But thank you so much. You're doing an amazing job.
I appreciate that. And thank you all for taking the time to join. I know you're all very busy.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, Wayne, I don't think your audio is working, but I see a thumbs up. Thanks for that. Okay. Bye, guys. Thanks, and see you next time. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot, Alex.
Bye.